Hello and welcome to the CBB Supershow. I'm your host, Walter Waddell, aka Dub Deuces 85, and I am coming to you live on the FTN Network, the network with the most coverage for collegiate sports, esports, pro sports, every single sports-related show, topic, event, slate, anything. We have it. We break it down. We do it. Very proud to be a part of the FTN Network. We are past Christmas. I hope you had a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever it is you celebrate this time of year. I really do hope it went well for you. We are headed towards the New Year's Eve portion of the season. We will be putting 2023 behind us and getting into 2024. It's crazy how fast the year went. We had an amazing tournament last March. Parity was wild. They said that the transfer portal and all this stuff, it's going to really water it down. It's going to make it to where the top 3 or 4 teams are going to be so far ahead of the rest of the college basketball world. And what we're seeing so far is an even higher amount of parity, tremendous amount of insanity transpiring through the first 2 seasons of the collegiate basketball season. And we're in a situation where teams go into the number 1 spot in the rankings, get beat. We have teams that are undefeated getting beat. We have a really, really crazy amount of things that have happened and are still yet to happen. The upcoming March Madness and the tournament in general are going to be really, really fun. We're putting non-con part of the schedule also behind us. We're getting into conference play. We had a few days off. We're ready. Our mind, our body, our souls, we're all ready. We're doing the bowl season thing, crazy stuff, college football throughout. We still have a week or 2 of that, plus the playoff with my Washington Huskies. Got the brand new from, home field apparel. The family got me the Huskies hoodie that I wanted, a light purple alt color there. Loving it, doing my thing with the Huskies. We're also America's team, as you know. ESPN with Joe Lunardi, their resident bracketologist, has the Washington Huskies as the final team out, or I guess first team out, if you will, and part of that last 4 teams out grouping. We're on the cusp, folks. We're on the cusp. As much as, we have disdain for Coach Mike Hopkins, this team, this Husky squad is legit. There's talent. They should be able to make the tournament. One thing is that Frank Kepnong is hurt again. Without him, we are in dire straits. So we will need him in order to make the tournament. But the Pac-12, man, football-wise, the Pac-12 did admirably this year. I think basketball-wise, it's going to be really tough. Outside of Arizona and maybe Colorado and my Huskies, there's going to be some really porous teams. UCLA, hugely disappointing. Their roster is awful. When people were talking about how good they were going to be, I just had to scratch my head, say, this roster's awful. How are they going to be good? Teams that we thought were going to be good haven't been, such as St. Mary's. It's just going to be a crazy tournament. So I'm really looking forward to the rest of the season. And I know that you guys are as well. Coverage will continue. Daily slate breakdowns and written content. There will be 3, 4, 5 shows per week. As we get into late February, early March, we go daily on the shows, breaking down each and every slate. Going to be primarily flying solo, but I will have special guests here and there to help us out as well as the season goes on. Not to mention betting, props, totals. We got Mike Kutry, our resident betting expert, our chief content officer, Mike Randall, who continues to scorch and scratch and claw his way to a unit of profit each and every day. We have a really excellent team here, and I'm proud to say that our college coverage is some of the best in the industry. Not just saying that because I'm part of it. I truly do believe that as well. All right, so we're going to talk about the small slate. We're getting back into it. As Thursday and Friday roll around, we'll have the bigger slates. But we're getting the holiday behind us with a 2-game slate that we're going to start out with. So it's going to be a little quick show tonight here, just talking about this 2-gamer. We'll return on Thursday night to talk about college football. That'll be with my pal Jake Kuchek, and then Friday night to talk about Saturday CBB. So we'll take a day off from shows again tomorrow. Back for 2 more here at the end of this week. Lots of coverage. This 2-game slate is a fun one. It's not one in which you should be, blowing your entire bankroll. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of overlap. A lot of times on these 3 or smaller slates, people ask me, what should I risk? What kind of strategy do you employ? Do you focus on single entry and cash? Do you run certain combos? Do you do a bunch of MME? Like, what do you do? Generally, I like to tell people it's wise to play less volume. We have some people who subscribe to the, somebody's got to win, format. And yes, somebody does have to win, but you also want to get your money in with the best of it. And a slate like this, where it's really obvious where you're going to spend some of your money, it just makes it really hard to find leverage, but we will definitely find leverage. First game on the slate is going to be the mighty Bears of Morgan State taking on the Cavs of Virginia. Now, we have a major DVP spot here that we have really been banging the drum on and have done quite well with for the first few weeks of the season and into now late December. Virginia, and it was the case last year and the year before, they don't do so well defending the front court. Coach Bennett's, they haven't had a dominant front court player that is able to handle containing opposing bigs, especially ones that are aggressive on the boards and have low post moves. What we see is a guard heavy group, and Virginia is at their best that way, but defensively, they're not doing so well. This was never more, obvious, prevalent, whatever you want to say, in the game against Memphis, in which they got their doors absolutely blown off. They played Malcolm Dandridge 21 minutes. He doesn't usually play more than that, but he had 8 rebounds, 9 points, 3 blocks. He absolutely detonated. Dandridge is a guy you rarely can use in DFS because of his foul issues, the minutes cannibalization, especially now that Nate Tomlin is available for them. It's going to be hard to play him, but stubbornly, I threw him in there. It worked out. You can go back and look at some of the other DVP spots. Texas A&M, that was a game that Virginia held them to 47 points, but Henry Coleman, 14 rebounds, 16 points. So even when they're holding opponents below 50, they're still getting rocked by those opposing bigs time and time again. The only game in which they really held them down was Syracuse. That was a game in which, their bigs, Naheem McLeod, Chris Bell, Malik Brown, Malik Brown had 10 and 5. I guess for him, that's fine. So they didn't do as well there against Syracuse. But every other time, Stephen Crowell of Wisconsin, 15 points, 10 rebounds. It's just been a very good spot. And it has to be somebody who is obviously somewhat of a relevant front court player. Go back to the Florida game in which Virginia scored 73, which is like, wow, how did that ever happen, right? In that one, Michael Hand logged in 14 points, 14 rebounds. Alex Condon off the bench. Not Alex Condon off the bench. It was actually Tyree Samuel, 11 rebounds in that one. This was before Condon started taking off and having the big games that he is. 2 different players with double-digit rebounds against Virginia in a loss. So what are we looking at when we're talking about a team like Morgan State, coached by Kevin Broadus, has one of the worst defensive efficiencies in the country, 348th. Offensive efficiency, 318th. They play at a fast tempo, 41st. We have a pretty good inference that they're not going to be able to play their style. Virginia's going to be able to slow them down. Another thing that Morgan State doesn't do very well at is defend the 3. Virginia wants to live on 3s. They want McNeely shooting them. That's when they're at their best. So they're going to take a ton here, and this Morgan State team will be happy to oblige them. Now, Morgan State just played a home game against James Madison. James Madison's hot-ass balls, very popular pick at 12-0 to make the tournament, have one of the longest winning streaks in the nation right now. Wins over Michigan State early in the season. That's clearly not a fluke at this point. A win over Old Dominion, Fresno State, a Howard team that is fun, and Kent State, which took double overtime there. This James Madison team is for real. They beat Morgan State 89-75, but to me, that is a pretty good performance by Morgan State to not lose by 20 plus there. Granted, it was on their home court. This squad has some interesting players on it, and they do have some familiar names that we can look back and maybe, know a thing or two about and where that they actually came from. This is a Morgan State team that I think does have value. We don't want to just completely ignore them on a 2-game slate. Anyhow, we do need to see what the deal is with Winston Tabbs. Now, Winston Tabbs, is that a familiar name to you? It probably should be. He played many, many years ago for Boston College, played for East Carolina for a season in an injury-mired season. He hasn't really played more than 10 to 15 games in a season in a very, very long time. Health and other issues continue to pop up here for Winston Tabbs, who has missed 3 games in a row. Would be difficult to envision him playing against Virginia. It seems very unlikely. He is sub 4K if he does play, has top 5 usage and shot rates in the country. Winston Tabb on this Morgan State team is the real deal. But we'll see if he actually is able to play. If he weren't to start, you couldn't use him. So do not think that you're going to get him at 3.9 there as a guarantee. Nothing guaranteed with Winston Tabbs there, unfortunately. Now, the starting lineup that Morgan State has been running with lately includes the following: Cameron Hobbs, Will Thomas, Rob Lawson, Allanudam, and Amari Simpkins. The bench leaves a little something to be desired. Demanian Tops and Christian Oliver have been the main guys, but we definitely want to look to the starters here for the most part, as they are going to all play 30-plus minutes. That is pretty typical for Morgan State. The rates and everything for these guys, Amari Simpkins shoots about 51% from the field. A lot of bunnies that he gets, 21% shot usage rate. Looking at, let's see, Will Thomas shooting 35% from long range, 23% shot rate. Cameron Hobbs playing the most minutes on the team at 76.8% of those available minutes, 31% three-point shooter, 19% assist rate. There isn't a lot to get excited about for this team, honestly, pulling out these different numbers. Rob Lawson has a 29.8% shot rate, being able to step in there into a bigger role. Now, he missed majority of the season to start out the first month and a half. Came back against Campbell, coincides with Tabbs being out, got the start against JMU, played the 35 minutes, took a ton of shots, 18 of them, in fact. Only 1 of 6 from long range, but he is absolutely chucking in the games that he has been available for. He is there at 6'5", so we're not getting anything sneaky there. In the past, this would have been a 3K player on DK, so I'm happy that their dynamic pricing made the adjustment here for Lawson, which doesn't allow people to just sneak him in there at low rostership or a low salary. If you want to use him, you'll certainly have to make a decision on if you're going to do that and how you're going to do that. Now, the front court players for Morgan State that we would look to in a DVP status are not necessarily going to be all that great. However, we don't have a lot of options here on a small slate, and we want to get a little bit different. How are we going to do that? Taking a big from Morgan State, against Virginia makes a lot of sense. Now, the front court options here typically going to be Christian Oliver splitting time at the 5 with Allanudam. Their minutes are cannibalized for that reason, but Udamato usually gets the start, and then Will Thomas with spot bench duty from Trent Edwards. Amari Simpkins also plays at the 4 about 15% of the time. Looking at it, Thomas, his rebounding rate, 16%, just okay. Simpkins, 17%, just okay. Christian Oliver, who's a 7-footer, 22% combined rebounding rate, just okay. Allanudam, who's a 6'10 junior, getting those starting minutes at the 5, 8.5% offensive rebounding rate, a combined rate of nearly 27%. He is our best bet here to potentially take advantage of this matchup. He has started the last 7 games, came off the bench the first month of the season, had a couple of DNPs. Now he's out there, 30 minutes against JMU. That's certainly encouraging. 8 rebounds, 11, 12, 2, and 4 over those last 6 to 7 starts. Definitely the part of his game where he's going to be able to contribute. He does have a high foul rate, and that is an issue. I think that 5.6 fouls per 40, it's definitely scary, no doubt. When you look over at the pricing here for Udamato, 5'7", we're not necessarily getting a huge discount there either. But if there is a guy who could potentially do the business for us here in this matchup, it is Udamato. He is the guy. Won't have a lot of rostership. On a 2-game slate, I wouldn't recommend playing a bunch of, double ups and head-to-heads and all that. but you're playing the jam, some of these large field GBPs, getting a guy on a 2-game slate sub 10% in a DVP positive spot. I like it. I like it. And it's going to test that DVP. I am less confident in him than I was in Malcolm Dandridge, and I'm never confident in Malcolm Dandridge. Last game that they played in against Memphis, I was kind of gritting my teeth and being like, this is probably stupid, but we're going to go for it. And it worked out. So I am looking at Udamatu there. For 300 less, you get Christian Oliver, who comes off the bench, plays less minutes. Had a spike game against a non-D1. If one of them gets into foul trouble, then the other steps in there. So maybe some GBP exposure to Oliver is in order as well. Looking at the odds here. Virginia has a 26-point favorite, 131.5 total. What's up, Grant? My book has a line 28.5 total at 131.5. So only 26 on DraftKings. Virginia's just, man, like, who has confidence in Virginia right now? Not me. The way that their offense is right now, it's just super stagnant. They're putting a lot of their hopes and dreams on Isaac McNeely hitting threes, which I've talked about it every Virginia slate. They put so much time and effort into his development. They're going to continue to allow him to chuck. And then Reese Beekman is such a good second or third option when he doesn't have to be the go-to scorer. He can focus on being a 3-and-D guy. He contributes in all those other categories. He makes a timely steal. He grabs a rebound. He makes the extra pass. But when he has to be the go-to scorer, it's not impossible. We saw him score 21 against Northeastern, but it's really not his strength. And when we look at the rest of this Virginia offense or this team in general, Ryan Dunn, same thing. Like, he's not a big-time scorer, at least yet. He does a lot of the things that Reese Beekman does. You don't got any offensive ability from Andrew Rohde right now. He was the kid at St. Thomas last year that was one of only 3 freshmen to average 15, 5, and 5. He's just not acclimating to this system, unfortunately. He's playing a lot of minutes, but he's not giving us anything. Leon Bond still not really giving us a lot. He's still pretty raw. His minutes are trending up. I do think Bond has some offensive upside here eventually. And unfortunately, Dante Harris, who showed some upside, his freshman year at Georgetown, some people even said he looked like a young AI. I thought that was a little hyperbole in action there, because you're seeing him now. Obviously, he's been out for almost a month. But even when he was playing, he just did not look like he fit in this system whatsoever. So where is the offense coming for this Virginia team? And if they get hit in the mouth, like, let's say Morgan State comes out and their unthinkable happens, they get hot from 3 and they keep, this one close, or they're hitting these threes and trading 3s for 2s, and maybe they're only down 10. Like, there's a really good opportunity for them to cover here if they can hit shots, because Virginia just doesn't have that offense. You saw Memphis, they couldn't miss. Virginia just got buried, and Memphis did a fantastic job of getting in McNeely shorts. Like, Syracuse game, NC Central, like, he just was unchecked, shooting 3s with reckless abandon. I think he took like 16 3s in 2 games. Northeastern tried to make the adjustment, almost beat them. He was not as good. He was 3 for 12 in that game. Memphis completely took him out of it. Put a major focus on him, tried to make it to where he had to create his own shot. You saw he had 4 turnovers, which I believe was a season high. 1 for 8 shooting, forced a lot of bad shots, and that is the key to success. Does Morgan State have the personnel to contain McNeely? Maybe not, but the blueprint is pretty clear here on how to overcome the Virginia defense and forcing them into a rough spot and making somebody else score besides Isaac McNeely. The way this roster is built, it's very odd. So yeah, the sprinkle of Morgan State, spread there makes a lot of sense. It would be even more interesting if Winston Tabbs were to actually play. Let's do a quick little search here. Try not to get distracted by the UNLV game that's going on right now. Yeah, so it does look like Tabbs is still going to be on the shelf. We'll do some more homework on that overnight and into the morning. But I don't think they're going to have him. So as far as plays on Virginia, you want to obviously use some. I actually like Jake Groves in this one, playing 25 to 30 minutes. He makes a lot of sense at 5-1. He doesn't have a ton of upside there, but safe points, 4x, absolutely. And then the guard forward eligibility that we get with Leon Bond. I think Leon Bond's going to end up playing his way into the starting lineup sooner rather than later on with consistency, I should say. He has played 20 or more minutes in 2 of his last 3 of his last 4. Usage rate of 31% against Syracuse, 23% against Central. That number's going up. His shot rate has ballooned above 25%, and he's only taken 2 threes. Not his game. He is getting to the rack. He is drawing fouls, and that is the way he's trying to generate points. I really like the way Bond plays because it's not the typical way you see successful Virginia players play on offense. He also has a offensive rebounding rate of almost 18%, combined rate nearing 30%. So more minutes for Leon Bond, please. We definitely want to see that. 5K, a little risky there, but he's worth it in this matchup against Morgan State. Not Oregon State. All right, and then the other game on the slate here is a doozy. We have Chicago State, mighty Chicago State, taking on Cal Baptist. Cal Baptist 11-point favorites, total of 131.5. DK just being a little bit lazy here, putting the total at the same for both games. Looking at what we have here with Chicago State, mighty Chicago State. Put some respect on Coach Gerald Gillian and the Cougars, who are 7-10 this year. You know, Chicago State's been the laughing stock of college basketball for many years now. 7-25 a couple of years ago. 4-25 was the year that Lance Irvin got finally canned there. 3-29. They were 11-20 last year under Coach Gillian. He has them at 7-10 here, but they own a win over Northwestern by 2 on the road. How on earth they ever beat Northwestern? Tough to say. They followed that up with a win against Valparaiso, which they really probably shouldn't have won. A tough one against Bethune-Cookman. Don't look now, but all of a sudden, Chicago State, the mighty Cougars of Chicago State, have won 5 of their last 7. Loss against Wisconsin most recently and St. Thomas. This Chicago State team, defensively, they're 244th, 330th. They are very offensively challenged. That is true. Ken Palm has it 72-60 in favor of Cal Baptist. The starting unit for this Chicago State team that did play Morgan State. I keep wanting to say Oregon State. Morgan State earlier this year, it was 84-83. They did beat Morgan State in that one. Winston Tabbs went absolutely ape in that game. 23 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. They did turn him over 7 times. So ultimately, a late turnover cost them that game. But the Chicago State starting group looks like the following. Wesley Cardette, that is a name you want to know. I'll get back to him in a second. Deshaun Corbett, Brent Davis, Cameron Jernigan, and Noble Crawford. Love the name. The bench they did use quite a bit last game against Wisconsin due to the blowout. Deshaun Jean Charles, Kedrick Green, A.J. Neal, and Tashandre Cole all playing double-digit minutes off the bench. In a close game, they had the 1-point win over Bethune-Cookman recently. We saw the starters play, 4 of those 5 starters play 30-plus minutes. Deshaun Jean Charles, the main play off the bench, played 25 minutes. Cameron Jernigan, due to fouls, played only 14. No other bench player played above 8. So in a closer matchup, which this could be for a while, the starters will play a lot. The usage leaders for this team, Wesley Cardette, who's playing 88.9% of the available minutes. He has a 28.4% usage rate, 29.5% shot rate, a 20.4% assist rate, and he is drawing 5.4 fouls per 40, shooting 35% from long range on 73 attempts. Wesley Cardette has played for Samford early in his career, part of a very intriguing Samford roster. I really like Samford because they do a good job working the portal and developing. Unfortunately, they were not able to keep Cardette. He ends up with Chicago State, playing a huge role for them. Certainly my favorite play on the team, but of course he is 8K, so we're not getting a discount. He's definitely the guy that we want to own here, though. 22 shot attempts in that game against Wisconsin, which ended up being a blowout. He made just 4, but that's major volume for Cardette, who is going to be a key play for me and a priority in all formats. Next up, Deshaun Corbett playing 87.2% of the available minutes, 17.3% defensive rebounding rate, shooting on volume, 56 3-point attempts, but only making 23%. But hey, he's taking them. 7.5K. Less excited about him than I am Cardette, but he's out there playing lots of minutes, taking lots of shots. Brent Davis playing 77.4% of the minutes, 56 threes attempted, only 27%. This team struggles from three-point range, but hey, that does not stop them from taking it. There's volume there, and if they start falling, who knows what could happen. 5% steal rate there for Brent Davis. He is coming in at 6.1K. A little more sporadic, does have some foul issues, not the cheapest option there. Foul rate of 4.4 per 40, so look out if you do decide to go the Davis route. Noble Crawford, 58% of the available minutes. He is shooting 43% from long range on 29 attempts. So you've got one player on this team actually shooting above 35%. It is Noble Crawford, 3.8% block rate, 5.2% steal rate. Provides us with a lot on defense, is 6.7K. Not a great price for him either. However, this is a spot against Cal Baptist where he could actually pan out. It is a forward position. Forwards on this slate could tend to be tough. So I do like Noble Crawford there just because of a lack of options and somebody who certainly looks like a viable candidate there on a 2-game slate. Off the bench, Deshaun Jean-Charles, who's only 4'6". Looking at his rates, they're pretty solid overall. 18.5% shot rate. Has taken 43s, shooting under 30%, has a rebounding percentage combined of 21%. We'll take it. 2.5% block rate, 1.7% steal rate, 4.4 fouls per 40. Got to be careful of that, but sub 5K. He's at least going to be good for 20 minutes off the bench. And he is their primary sub, first guy. Foul's the only thing that could undo him, but I certainly like him because the value on this slate could end up being a little bit spotty. He is somebody that we have to consider for that reason alone, and because he is going to get those minutes, especially if a guy like Cameron Jernigan gets into some foul issues again. Jernigan sitting there at 4'8" as a starter, playing roughly 20 minutes as well. It's kind of a toss-up between him and Jean-Charles. Jernigan getting the start, and he's 4'8" as a forward, but there is definitely some trouble brewing there because he also has a high foul rate. How high do you ask? 7.6 fouls per 40. It's almost a guarantee he will pick up 2 fouls in the first half. Transferred over from Tarleton State, Scott TSU's alma mater. I know he loves it. He'll probably be using him. Jernigan has started the last 6 games after being mostly a bench piece, but the foul issues have plagued him and kept him from really contributing at any kind of viable level, so do not expect him to get many minutes. Deshaun Jean-Charles, probably the better look there. Just wish he was a forward. On Cal Baptist, I believe we had them on a slate once before. It was against Oregon, and they ended up getting just boat raced by Oregon by 20 points. There are some familiar names on this Cal Baptist squad. We'll go through and start with their starters first. 7-4 under Rick Croy. They have the slow pace 301st in tempo ranking, coming off a close loss against Western Kentucky. They did lose, like I said, by almost 20 or over 20 points there against Oregon. A 1-point win over UC Riverside, which ended up being a pretty fun game there. Big West versus WAC. Chicago State, this is a game they should be able to win against. The starting group for Cal Baptist typically is Dom Daniels, Brantley Stevenson, Uvan Udrago, Hunter Goodrick, and Blondo Tishikingo. The bench pieces, Malik Wade and Scotty Washington. This is a team that will want to, especially in close games like this, should be, they're going to play their starters 25, 28 minutes at minimum. The bench pieces aren't that exciting for this group. Ivan Udrago is a player that you should be familiar with, played recently with Grand Canyon, had a few seasons before that with Nebraska. He is a known commodity for this Cal Baptist crew. Has a usage rate over 22%, a combined rebounding rate over 30%, and he's drawing 6 fouls per 40. The nice thing for Ivan is he has 2.6 fouls per 40 call, which is well below his career average, which last year was 4.4, 3.9 the year before that at Grand Canyon. He's been getting a good hold on the foul issues. Also comes in at only 6'6". Definitely a matchup we want to look to him. That is a forward spot I want to fill with the former Nebraska and Grand Canyon transfer. Let's see here. The usage leader for the team, Don Daniels, 26.8%, shot rate of 32.5%. That's top 40 in the country. Also draws 4.5 fouls per 40 and has a make rate of 33% from long range. Priced at 7.8, so it's not a sneak or anything like that. He's, it's going to be obvious where he's going. 19 shot attempts in his last game, had 24 attempts against Utah Tech a couple of games ago, 32 real points against Western Kentucky, 30 real against Utah Tech. Big time scorer for this Lancers team. He is a guy that you want to prioritize. Thankfully, there isn't anyone, outside of Cardet at 8K and Beekman at 8.3. We're not having like super big payups. There's only 2 guys above 8K. So we can make it work. And Daniels being the third highest at 7.8, he should definitely be a priority for us. Other starters, Hunter Goodrick playing 78.3% of the minutes. He's second on the team in minutes played behind just Dom Daniels. Let's see, combined rebounding rate, 32%. That is his main viable stat that he's going to give us. 7K is not a great price, but he's been pretty consistent against all types of competition. Western Kentucky, 26, Rio, 29, 21 against Oregon in the blowout where he played 31 minutes. And then you see as low as, 17 against Utah Tech. He's definitely a guy I have some interest in at 7K, but I think I am taking that slight discount with Ouedraogo. Rates-wise, for Goodrick stacking up against Ouedraogo, his usage rate and shot rate are below Yvonne, but the rebounding rate is pretty comparable. They're really just sitting on that 30% line together. Everything else is fairly negligible. Neither of them shoot threes, so it's mainly just a personal preference in what your lineup you can fit there between Goodrick and Ouedraogo. I think they're at the end of the day, they'll probably score pretty close. So I wouldn't, kill yourself overnight trying to figure out which one of those 2 to play. And it might even be the case to play both. Brantley Stevenson, 18.4% usage rate, 20.4% shot rate. He's shooting 49% from long range. He is a gunner for this team. Played for Cal Poly in the previous 2 seasons. 2 conference games played thus far. He is shooting 55% in those games. He has just got the green light to continue firing. They have him priced at 6.4, which is a reasonable price for a guy who's mainly going to be giving us fantasy value from his scoring. He's not going to add a lot in other peripherals, but if he gets hot, he can absolutely still pay that off. And then Blondu Tukachikingo, trying my best on that one. Tried to get the pronunciation before the show, but not a lot of people talking about him. 6.3K, playing 30 minutes a game. Blondu, as far as his rates go, 72.2% of the minutes played, 18% usage rate, 36% from long range. Does have a true shooting percentage in the top 90 in the country. He is definitely a viable option because he's going to give us peripherals over points. If we could combine him with Stevenson, we'd have one hell of an elite option, but one scoring heavy, one is peripherals heavy. I tend to lean towards Blondu because of his peripherals. I think he's just a little bit safer there, but that is going to be another personal preference one there. The bench pieces, 4-4 for Washington. He has guard forward eligibility, but the minutes just aren't going to be there for Scotty. He's really capped at 15 to 18 off the bench there. At 4-4, we're going to need some value. Can we squeeze 12 to 15 fantasy points out of him? We absolutely can. And that might be all we need. A 2.5 to 3x number from Washington at 4-4 could be enough to walk to the cash and getting those green screens. And then the other main bench piece, Malik Wade, who's 3.8, playing roughly 10 to 15 minutes. That's even more of a lean play. And you're almost just kind of saying you're going to take a 1 to 2x number from him and hope for the best. So it's certainly a lean spot, but it can work most definitely. And this is a very weird slate. It's a 2-gamer, and that's really all I have to say about it. Core wise, I'm definitely taking Dom Daniels from Cal Baptist. He's just so good. It would be silly to fade him, and everybody's going to be on him. So leverage wise, fading him certainly could make sense. But it's a lean spot to be certain. Looking at, let's see here. All right, looking at some of the other plays for core, and it's really, really tough to get here and say core, but we're going to say Dom Daniels, Ivan Ouedraogo. We're going to take both of the Cal Baptist guys there. And then I would say our third member is going to be Chicago State's Deshaun Jean-Charles, who's there at sub 5K. Not because I necessarily think he's some sort of elite play, but he's at a discount, and I I foresee foul trouble coming in front of him. So 20, 25 minutes from him should be enough to at least get us somewhat right. I am going to start having the not necessarily ownership projections, but minutes projections, which will lead to an actual sheet with point projections as well. I've been kind of teasing that and waiting for that to happen. That is going to be happening as soon as tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that if you're a part of the FTN Network. I will be posting those initially. They are going to take some time to get fine-tuned, but that is ready to go after much tweaking, planning, organizing, and making it work. I think we're there. So I'm excited about that. Prize picks, we got nothing on the prize pick side. I don't think there will be anything, maybe, but probably not. And there's no props for these games either. So that is pretty much it. Going to be focused on the college football slate tomorrow, which is going to be 4 games lasting all day. Going to have some bets in the tracker for that, also prize picks, and then individualized strategy talk in the CFB Discord, which we do often. A wacky one today, but I think we got some late guys in the UNLV game that are ending up panning out for us. So I think it's going to end up being a good slate there. Appreciate everybody who continues to support the show each and every day, week, month, year. Please, if you can find it in your heart to drop a like on the video, comment, and share, we do appreciate it. We'll be back here Thursday night for the CFB version of the show. Good luck tomorrow. Let's get those green screens and try out these new projections on the 2-game slate. See y'all next time.